206 days into the presidency of Donald Trump, the world now waits for the most anticipated summit meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is importantly the first meeting that has been held between the two sides since the Ukraine-Russia war broke out. And diplomats are calling it historic. Critics are calling the present situation dangerous. The stakes are absolutely ruthless, ladies and gentlemen. Every word, every pause, every unscripted glance between Donald Trump and Putin will be dissected for signs of power play on who's winning, who's losing, power shifting in real time. This is the test of one, American resolve. Secondly, Russia's ambition and the fragile balance of power on the world stage. What does Putin want? Putin wants Trump to formally recognize all the areas that have been annexed. He would want maybe not a formal acceptance of Crimea, but he's more interested in making sure that there is a commitment to demilitarize Ukraine and to never let it enter the NATO. He also wants a commitment on the lifting or easing of US sanctions on Russia. What does Trump want? Trump wants a very quick ceasefire. Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize for himself as the result of all of this. Trump wants America out of this conflict, which he had promised to do within and before the first 24 hours of his presidency. What does Zelensky want? Zelensky will be against any land swap agreement. He will be looking forward to actually reclaim the lands occupied by Russia. But I personally think he's going to find it very difficult to get this because he really doesn't have much of cards with him. Ukraine is likely to not abandon its demand for NATO, and he will in fact insist on Ukraine being brought into the alliance, but I don't think he'll get Donald Trump's help in that. What are the likely scenarios? Let me present to you, ladies and gentlemen, at least 6 scenarios which can happen. Scenario number 1 today is that Trump gets a time-bound ceasefire. This is the most likely scenario, a time-bound, say 30, 40, 60-day ceasefire, so that the further discussions can happen without fire being exchanged on both sides, which Russia has not agreed to so far. This will require for Trump to carry a commitment from Zelensky on all forms of compliance and a rollback of troops to create some kind of a green zone. And he can even pitch a fund. He will give some kind of an economic incentive to Ukraine to do that. Likely scenario number 1. Likely scenario 2 is that a more tame scenario, that nothing much is achieved, but Trump and Putin agree to another meeting. Even if that happens, even if that is agreed in a neutral setting perhaps, and if that setting involves Ukraine on the table, it can actually lead to some kind of a resolution. It will be seen very well. Conservatively, Putin can push for a meeting to happen in Moscow. He can even ask for a meeting in Crimea as a show of strength. Trump is unlikely to agree to Crimea. If he moves to Moscow, then it's complete recalibration on the global stage. So whatever is happening today is going to have a ripple effect. Likely scenario 3, Putin and Trump fail to reach any agreement, and in that case, Putin will muscle flex and a full-scale attempted invasion of Ukraine will be imminent. This will aggravate the situation, and Russia will be tempted to aggravate the situation by moving further into Ukrainian territory. Likely scenario number 4 is that Putin convinces Trump for a land swap deal. This is going to be what Putin wants, but can there be an in-principle agreement on land swap in the meeting here? I'm not sure about it. It's really highly unlikely, in my view, that a land swap deal materializes in the first meeting because it requires a lot of detail, and Europe and Ukraine will have to be involved in that. So it's unlikely. Likely scenario number 5, Trump agrees to no NATO membership for Ukraine. If this happens, this is a major concession given by Trump. In turn, Trump could agree. He could say, I'm not going to let them enter NATO. This will render European politics very weak. A membership ban on Ukraine by Donald Trump of NATO effectively legitimizes Russia's seizure of Ukraine, as it would mean that the US had agreed to its error of judgment on furthering NATO eastwards, which caused the Russian advances in Ukraine. But you see, Donald Trump is no fan of what Joe Biden has done. So for him personally, he might end up agreeing on something like this, which will be a big victory for Vladimir Putin. And last likely scenario, number 6, viewers, is that Trump and Putin will agree for a ceasefire on a condition that there will be elections in Ukraine. The ceasefire can be brokered on the condition that Ukraine holds nationwide elections under international supervision, including some element of Russian scrutiny. This move will be framed as a step forward towards a political settlement, but key territorial disputes will remain unresolved and subject to future talks. I believe that when meetings like this happen, there is already 80% of the job done. I do not think that beyond 3 or 4 uncertain elements and the element of a personal, discussion between Trump and Putin, that they would go into the meeting without considerable work already having been done on both sides. The most likely scenario, in my views, is scenario number 1 and scenario number 2. I'd like to play out the graphics again. A combination of scenario 1 and 2 is what I'm predicting: a time-bound ceasefire, followed by an agreement of another meeting. These are the most likely scenarios.